So perhaps we can start. You've recently published that Veeam's, I think it's the 2023 Ransomware Trends Report. So obvious place to start would be a sort of high level overview of what it found, and then we might dig into the results in a bit more detail.
Yes, we have. Thanks for kind of asking me about that one. That's something we're particularly proud of. I think we've done it in a couple of different flavors this year as well. Whereas traditionally we've looked at sort of data protection particularly, we've now used that resource and the questions to really target and specifically look at ransomware trends as well. So essentially, you know, we're seeing, unfortunately, that really the industry is losing the fight against ransomware. We're seeing at least 1 in 7 organizations globally have almost 80% of their data affected through ransomware. I think the phrase we currently use is it's not a case of if or when, it's now how often. So we're seeing a significant protection gap. And what's making it worse is the cyber criminals that are doing this are getting more sophisticated in their attacks as well. So they are deliberately attacking the backup repositories. And you know, that is, I think, in 93% of our findings, that's the place that they sought to corrupt data first or encrypt data. And around 70% of businesses, you know, have been impacted, you know, through losing repositories and data and backups through that.
Okay, and in terms of what it did or didn't find, people, I mean, I guess everyone publicly, or at least maybe pretends or says they haven't paid the ransomware, but I think quite a lot of people do pay the ransomware. But did the survey uncover what actually happens? I mean, everyone, again, perhaps assumes that you pay the ransomware, the bad guys hand it all back, controlled you, and life goes on as normal. But is that the case, or do you actually need to be slightly more wary that even if you're prepared to pay the ransomware, it doesn't necessarily restore you to your, you know, your happy pre-ransomware position?
Good questions there. I think I'll unpack those. I think there's 2 in there. One is, what do we find around people paying ransom? And then what was the impact or effect of those that paid the ransom? So we did find that many companies have a no pay policy, but we also found that at the time, 80% of the victims did pay the ransom regardless. So I suppose it's great to have a policy, but you know, sometimes, you know, in an emergency, you need to do the right thing potentially to protect your business as business owners. So around 80% of that, I think it was around 77% globally and around 83% in EMEA. But sort of just digging into the statistics on those that paid the ransom, it kind of does boil down to, again, hit and miss as to whether it got paid or not. One other element, I think, just to go into as well. So the situations that kind of have predicated into paying, some of the attacks we saw or customers had, no ransom was actually asked for. So there wasn't even the ability to pay a ransom to get out of the problem. Around about 16% of companies managed to recover without paying. 21% of customers actually paid the ransom but still couldn't recover. And then 58% paid the ransom and were able to recover. So yeah, of those that kind of pay the ransom, 21% versus 58%, around about 70-20, I suppose, could actually recover. So even paying the ransom out of policy still doesn't guarantee full recovery. And again, even if you get some sort of recovery, how long does it actually take you to get your systems back up and running?
And in terms of the companies that didn't pay the ransomware, or, you know, if you are intending not to pay the ransomware, then you've got, I guess, the fundamental point is you must be very confident that your backup is going to do what it tells you it's going to do. So did the survey uncover sort of what people were doing backup wise, and were there any, I don't know whether you uncovered people who thought we won't pay, our backup's great, and then, oh dear, our backup, no, just, you know, I think immutable storage is the term, isn't it? That as to what you need, but yeah, just thoughts around that.
Yeah. So I think we didn't ask this specifically, but I'd imagine most of them that chose not to pay checked and recovered before going down the non-payment route. I don't think anyone would have kind of taken the chance. So yeah, there are a number of technologies out there that can help, immutability being one of them. But I think immutability itself is kind of a term that's kind of perhaps bandied about a little bit too often and too easily as a simple solution. Ultimately, it's around policy and process. And what we say is, and actually having a longitudinal view around data security, of which backup and immutability is a key part of it. But if you imagine that your antivirus, intrusion detection and prevention systems are constantly being attacked, and the threat actors have an infinite number of chances to get through, then eventually they will get through. And we see data protection as the final line of defense, immutability being a core component of that, but also having things that are indestructible as well. So when we talk about through indestructibility, it's not just the immutability part, it's making sure that, as an example, if you have immutable files in AWS and then you stop paying AWS, well, they're immutable, but you can't get access to them ever again either. So I think there's layers of immutability that get banded around. The other thing is around how to securely restore. And what we say around that is, well, you've probably, over the course of the duration that a cyber attack has been sitting in your environment, because sometimes they sit there for months, sometimes years. So it's not a case of, oh, can we just go back to a point before we had an attack? Because that could have been 2 years ago. You don't want to lose 2 years worth of data, for example. So it's all about having a secure restore process. So when you go to restore your data, perhaps to yesterday or the last known good state before the final attack and encryption happened, you need to be able to kind of put that into a secure area, ensure that you're quarantining the files or the viruses or the key threat vectors before then restoring it back into production. And we see that as a key stepping point along the way as part of the process to recover effectively and quickly.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued on that point because, as you say, people again assume they'll just restore and that'll be fine. But there is potentially the risk of reinfection during the recovery process. So yeah. I don't know, did the survey uncover that, or just further to the point you're making, how critical is it that people understand, what they're able to do with their backup, or how, as you say, safe it is when they start the restore process?
Yeah, so I think there's two things. There's the restore process, and I think there is the alignment of cybersecurity teams and data protection teams as well. And I think one of the things that our survey pointed to is, from an organizational alignment perspective, our IT and security divisions lined up in a way that allows them to have a good view and a good policy to protect data during a cybersecurity attack. One of the things that we found, and we didn't find out if these were the ones that had recently been impacted or not, but almost all of them see that there's a lot of improvement needed. I think only around 2% of all customers that polled or companies polled thought that their current team alignment between the cyber security and data protection teams was good. 17% thought a complete overhaul of the entire team, while another 43% thought significant improvement was required as well. But from a technology perspective, I suppose, and going into this kind of quarantine or the risk of reinfection, that is essentially one of the key things that we've been pointing to. So if I look at some of that, so how do you ensure clean restores was one of the key questions we asked. And around 44% will first try to restore into an isolated test area or sandbox type environment before production, and then sort of use that to effectively quarantine and remove any of the issues. That's 44%, but 35% of all customers, companies polled was also they restore it straight back into production and then immediately scan it for safety afterwards, which we wouldn't recommend, but there are certain situations where you don't have the choice, and many companies don't necessarily have that sandbox environment, or it's too difficult to create that kind of test environment to do that. Another 12% said they restored it straight into production and then carried on monitoring it as normal, and 9% just restored it and hoped for the best. But again, I suppose it varies down by workload as well. So there's perhaps one policy or one level of control that you can have with your on-premises data, and another with maybe through a third-party service provider, and then another one with the hyperscalers as well. So it's interesting, actually. 71% could recover back to a cloud type of deployment instead. 81% could restore back to an on-premises type scenario.
Okay, and I'm wondering what the survey did or didn't say about cyber insurance. I mean, are any companies relying on it as a sort of get out of jail free card, or are they aware that often there's quite strict requirements? You can't just say, yeah, we've been ransomware, pay up. Mm-hmm. The people providing the insurance want to understand that you do actually know, or you've taken reasonable precautions. Just what people are doing with cyber insurance.
Yes, we've got some interesting data points on that. But I also have been speaking, so some anecdotal points as well. We're speaking to a number of cyber insurance companies as well to help them develop and look at what best practice looks like, so that they can go out and advise customers what steps they need to take to either be viable for cyber insurance or things they can do to mitigate the cost of, say, cyber insurance. And I think in many regards, we've come to the end of the era when IT disruption was an insurable element. So just IT availability of systems was often sort of captured under business insurance, of which cybersecurity in those was just an environment or environmental factor or a driver when, okay, if that happens. But that's changed now, and now we're looking at a lot of insurance companies are really building their own cybersecurity insurance. It's not part of standard business disruption insurance. No, it's not the same as having a burst pipe or something that can impact the business in that way. So I think we've certainly seen lots of companies use their insurance or try to use insurance. We've also seen their premiums go up significantly as well. And actually, I'll talk to some of the specific data points we've got on that one. But it was interesting to see the conversations we're having with some of these business and cybersecurity reinsurance companies that are effectively taking the second stage of cyber insurance, and what the data actually showed as well. So a couple of questions here. One question was, do you have cyber insurance? Of which 57% said we have insurance and it does include ransomware events. Another 21% said that ransomware is excluded from their current cyber insurance. And another 17% said no, but actively looking for a cyber insurance. And then another 2 and 3% said they're not interested in any cyber insurance. Perhaps they thought that the people asking the questions were cyber insurance salespeople. And 3% said we used to, but we don't currently. But then the sort of the coverage of that kind of has changed quite a bit as well. So 74% of all customers with cyber insurance said over the last year the premium has increased. 43% said that the deductibles before claim has increased, and another 10% said that the coverage benefits are greatly reduced as well. So, we are seeing the cyber insurance market really tightening up, and we were kind of experiencing this as we were kind of going through 2022. And you always kind of get a gut feel as to the way the market's moving and some of the feedback you get from IT managers, and all of a sudden a slightly more focused interest in risk mitigation solutions, of which Veeam is one of those, and it's really borne out in the data that we've seen in the polls.
Yeah, I was going to ask the sort of bigger picture from the survey's point of view, or anecdotally, because if you like, ransomware, backup, storage backup, etc., is one part of a wider sort of risk management where you analyze, I guess, every aspect of your business and try and understand the risks and how best to mitigate. So did the survey ask that sort of higher level questions to what was the overall risk management strategy, or where the backup recovery, ransomware, etc., fitted in? Just anything you can tell us about what companies are doing.
There was a general piece that points to the cybersecurity parts of the organisation and data protection fully aligned, and we've seen that the vast majority think that needs a significant overhaul. We've also seen a lot of requests for integrations with other technologies. So can data protection kind of integrate with elements of intrusion detection or prevention? Can they automate a number of tasks that mean that there's less human error? But in terms of the kind of integration into that, it's about that air gap. It's about certainly can a data protection vendor start scanning as part of the process before taking backups, and then quarantining or alerting at that point as well. And certainly Veeam, as well as a number of other companies, are looking at that kind of entropy scanning as well. So can we, before taking a full backup, can we identify that there is perhaps an infection, take the backup anyway because there's probably useful data in there, and then use that secure restore process to actually go. But again, I think it's all about ultimately using cloud as well. So it's not just disk backup, it's around using hyperscalers as well. And I've certainly seen, I need to kind of remember where I read it, but certainly from the FSA and from compliancy perspectives, that they're looking at all the major banks to effectively have a multiple hyperscaler strategy as well. So you can't just have all of your applications in either AWS or Azure. You need to split it across those two, or GCP or other things. So again, it's more policy than technology.
And there seems to be a growing sort of focused discussion around cyber resilience. Seems to be an increasingly used term, which recognizes that you mentioned earlier about people say there's a bit of a disjoint maybe between the cybersecurity aspect of a business and the storage. Do you think in that context, this focus on cyber resilience is helpful, that it's suggesting and requiring that teams, and it sounds like from what you're saying, if you're looking at maybe getting, if you like, some security up front and your backup, as it were, are you working with security events? So the collaboration piece, I suppose, is what I'm asking. What's going on now and what's potentially required?
Yeah, I think, and again, I think cyber resiliency budgets are increasing, and I think given the current sort of global economic conditions, that's IT budgets aren't growing particularly, but cyber resiliency budgets are. We're increasingly being asked for, and we're being called into the security office and the CISO offices to work out and to understand how our technology can work, with all those cyber resilient other parts of their business as well, such as antivirus and intrusion detection, prevention, and all those things. But interestingly, it's the prevention part has gone up around about 5.6%. In 2023 versus 22, and the recovery is 5.5. But I think one of the key messages that we're sending is, yes, absolutely invest in, because we're not winning the war at the moment with the cyber criminals. And you wonder, of the cybersecurity, the cyber criminals, have their cost of living increased? Is that why we're seeing more attacks, because they need hopefully more ransom money to fund their organizations? So we need to see that. But I think if you spend too much time around the prevention, you have to fully appreciate that no matter how much prevention you invest, there will be an event when it gets through. And it's about the recovery and speed of recovery that should not be forgotten about. So it's good to see they're both investing in the prevention piece, and recovery is also up 5.5% as well. So that's good to see.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of a summary, does the report, do you think, provide a broadly positive picture that people are working on improvements and doing what's required within an organization? Or would you characterize it more that to say it's alarming perhaps might be over, but do you think it's identifying there's some obvious gaps, shall we say, that the majority or a significant minority of companies still haven't quite joined up all the dots in their like cyber resilience strategy?
There is. I think that one of the things we point to is the fact that security now needs to be baked into every level of every piece of technology in there. We're also seeing our service providers used to have maybe infrastructure, cloud, networking, security. Now security is the horizontal, and every other element of what they do falls within that. So if you see kind of these larger consultancy service providers doing that, we're also seeing IT departments fall into that as well. So as an example, a couple of years ago, we would never need a CISO as part of a sign-off process to buy a data protection tool such as Veeam. But now every single project that we're involved in, as it goes internally through an organization, does get that security sign-off and element as well. And I think that's good for Veeam because we get additional feedback as to requirements. So I think it does sound the alarm, because I think certainly from a UK perspective, a couple of years ago, the economic condition was higher up the agenda than the security and the cybersecurity one. It's good to see that it's now being treated, with the highest level of priority. So yes, it's alarming because we're not winning the war, and we've been talking about this for a number of years, and cyber threats and cyber impacts are going up. And it used to be a case of when or if it happens. It's now how often will it happen, and actually that kind of cybersecurity policy should be, well, when it does happen, how quickly can we get back, and how much data can we avoid losing, and how much brand damage can we avoid? Because I think as consumers these days, we almost expect that to happen with some of these major brands. But if they can get their systems back up and running again, and our experience isn't kind of diminished by any way, then we kind of have an appreciation for that now. Whereas I think 2 or 3 years ago, it was kind of I can't believe that this company's been hacked. What they're doing. What they're doing with themselves. Whereas now I think it's standard. When you're seeing, the general members of parliament talking through increased, foreign government-sponsored attacks, I think it's kind of bringing it all to the forefront. So I think process and policy will ultimately resolve and remediate and mitigate the risk. Technology can help, such as Veeam and other technologies, building it in, but it's ultimately about policy and ensuring that you build the correct policy to mitigate everything you can to prevent anything from happening, but assume something is going to get through. We like to call it to the left of bang and to the right of bang. So do whatever you can to the left of bang to avoid that bang happening, but accept bang will happen, and then what happens to the right of bang afterwards, to help you get back up and running as quickly as possible with very little impact to the business, without having to try and go and secure an outrageously expensive cybersecurity policy that probably has significant loopholes that allow them to wiggle out of it as well. I think that's also informed our decision to offer our own sort of support and warranty as well. So again, if you buy all the components of Veeam as we would prescribe it and have it installed correctly and follow the process, then we will effectively warrant and guarantee that you will be protected from ransomware. And that idea, I think 2 or 3 years ago, was also unheard of.
Yeah, so perhaps in finishing, in terms of advice, I imagine the majority of people would accept that their cybersecurity risk management strategy is far from perfect. I mean, is there a sort of preferred way of doing it? I mean, if they talk to you, would you be able to at least point them in the direction of all the answers? Are they better off starting with a cybersecurity company? People love or hate consultants. Are they the place to start because they can sort of have an overview? Any just thoughts as to helping people to improve? I won't say start, because hopefully they are well on the way to doing something, but to improve their strategies.
Well, I think there's the concentric circles, and where they overlap is effectively where good policy plus good technology can equal a good outcome for customers. For me, if I was on the buying side of it, I would certainly go and identify some of the key vendors who specialize in prevention and detection, who specialize in the rapid recovery and restore, and bring them all into a project or into a working group, and ensure that all those concentric circles of what they offer can be born into effectively a solution and architecture that works for the company, but is flexible enough to allow for policy changes as well. But utmost and most importantly, ensure that your staff are trained to spot those attacks, because at the moment it's still the biggest majority of it is human error, like you and me clicking on the wrong attachment or the wrong link. I myself had to do our own internal security review, where you kind of go through the training, and then I didn't notice at the time, and I might be giving a little bit away, but then I had an email land within a couple of days afterwards, which, you know, report this to, or quarantine it, report it to IT. And I got a response back saying, thank you, that was a test. You've taken the course, you understand what to look out for. So I think companies need to be vigilant and be constantly testing their users themselves to make sure that they're fully aware of the situations that can occur, and the emails to watch out for and the other attacks.
But on the positive side, I suppose, it's with all those things you've outlined, you can't guarantee, as you say, you won't be attacked, but you can pretty much guarantee that you can be back up and running in the time frame that shouldn't have any kind of, you know, serious impact on your business. Is that a reasonable objective?
Perfectly summarized, actually, Phil. If you know, come and pitch for Veeam, because that's exactly it. You can spend and you can invest and you can plan and you can mitigate, but at some point something's going to come through. The only thing that can guarantee you back up and running is to be able to securely encrypt and make your data immutable for encryption. And even assume that that's not the case, that even if you have encrypted your data, there could be a hidden threat in there, and then you secure restoring policies to quarantine, to clean, to bring things back up and running as soon as they possibly can do. So assume it's going to happen, and then look to invest where you can get the fastest possible recovery with minimal impact.
Okay, well, it's been lovely to chat to you, and I appreciate the time, because as we chatted at the beginning, you're in Dublin and fairly busy, but thanks for spending the time down, and enjoy chatting. Thanks again.
Thanks, Philip. Good to speak to you.